So my name is Brennan Smith. I'm originally from Warwick, Rhode Island, and I currently live in Beijing, China. I went to the University of Rhode Island. I studied economics and English lit. Right now I work in the legal services field, specifically with intellectual property translation work. My primary role in China is, or was, developing from scratch a production facility for English to simplified Chinese translations for intellectual property purposes. And now now that it's been established, I manage, and the goal is to ultimately scale up the infrastructure we have here for production, as well as move some project management work from the United States to China to better accommodate work that needs to be done in Asian time zones. I don't even know how to say how important. I think it'll be long term. It helped me develop a much better way of managing people, way of being more open, much more patient, and I guess showed me that there's a lot more ways to interact with people, and not just professionally but also personally, to understand people. Even when there's a language barrier or culture barrier, it kind of showed me what was possible that I didn't think was possible earlier. I thought transitioning into the lifestyle living in China would be really difficult, and it proved to be unbelievably easy. Not only is China not quite as different as I had thought it was going to be, but I found the expatriate community incredibly friendly, and the local Chinese people also incredibly friendly. Anytime there was anytime I needed help, whether it was from other foreigners or from Chinese people, I'd say generally speaking, it was almost friendlier than home. People were really, really welcoming, really encouraging. My spare time here is not so different from my spare time at home. I enjoy cooking. I do that. Probably not as much as I'd like to, but quite a bit. Like I said earlier, the expat community here is pretty large, so when I moved here, I really didn't think I'd have many friends for the time I was here. I thought this was going to be much more kind of a work-based assignment, and I ended up meeting a relatively large group, much larger than I thought anyway, of people who I think I'll be friends with for a while, and then it just becomes same life as home, just in China. So some of the places that we go are a little bit more exotic, but yeah, I would say more or less it's the same as home. I would say there were two big obstacles. The first one was realizing that there was, and then navigating this intermediary industry that seems to exist between businesses and government regulatory agencies. As we were starting our operation in China, it turned out that things were not so clear, and that you always need to have good relationships with businesses or kind of consultancy companies that don't exist necessarily back in the West, and finding the right ones and building up your relationship with them proved to be much more important than I thought it was going to be when I first got here. Second was the culture. It is as different as I was told it was going to be. There's often not a perfect corollary for what we want to get done and what a local staff will expect or feel is reasonable, and vice versa. Sometimes they'll expect us to be doing things that we don't think are necessary, and that has, at least for me, caused some problems, and you created a much steeper learning curve than I think I would have experienced if I was doing something similar in a more Western country like Europe. Guanxi, or the concept of kind of a cultural relationship, or like a business currency that is not cash-based, is clearly very important. I can tell you that a number of vendors that we've chosen, when we bid out for some larger projects that we have, like renovating our office or working on large translation projects, we didn't necessarily choose based upon cost or quality, or at least not only cost or quality. There was this second kind of gray box that we had to say, how established is this company? What sort of relationships do they have that will help them in getting their main goal completed? Whether it was construction, or whether it was making sure that their labor practices were taken care of, so that they could deliver a large project on time that was important to us. The strangest thing that I've encountered here in China was not only the most notable strange thing for me, but also for friends of mine that have come to visit. I had 3 separate friends come on 3 separate occasions, and this is also their strongest memory of coming to Beijing. In the summer, when you're walking on the street, to get to wherever you need to go, there are people walking around just like any other city, but in Beijing, children don't wear diapers. So where a diaper would be, there's a slit, so the child can do its business wherever it would like to. And I think the first time you have the pleasure of seeing a mother holding a 2 or 3-year-old over a tree, just on the side of the road to go to the bathroom, it leaves a very strong mental mark. And I think that is the most notably strange thing that I'll remember about living here. Careful, plan as much as possible beforehand. I guess that's not necessarily any different than starting a business anywhere else, but I think one of the best pieces of advice I was given was in China, at least as a foreigner, you have one bite at the apple. You need to do things right, and you do them right the first time. And being a foreign company in China is fundamentally different from being a local company. So some of the cost-cutting measures that allow local companies to be competitive, foreign companies won't have access to. And whereas those measures will look appetizing, as a foreign company, you need to stay away from them. You need to identify the law and follow it both in letter and in spirit, or else there's an enormous amount of risk you can bring to your entity. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's a degree of lack of clarity to what some of the regulations are in China. So I would encourage very strongly that you get a good lawyer that you can trust. It's the first person you hire when you come to China, a lawyer, and get a really good one. And then focus on the relationships you can build with the companies that will service you as it relates to your legal obligations, taxes, social welfare, I guess in some cases import-export, make sure you get your permits properly. At every opportunity, try to make sure you're taking the high road. You're being as straightforward and as earnest as possible. Because even then you'll probably still run into problems. So I think if you do everything in good faith, you'll be in the best position to be successful. And I think that's the best you can hope for when you're starting out here.